real question for you, Jimmy, because I was kind of thinking about this with like wins and stuff like that. And then also I was on TikTok, and every once in a while, like a Brandon Sanderson clip will pop, and it kind of got me thinking a little bit about this. And, you know, also like people talk about Wheel of Time and the ending. Let's just say the unfortunate does happen and George does die before he releases Wins. I mean, you're like read a ton way more fantasy than I do, and you talk with people who are hardcore into it, and you even talk with authors, like you've talked with Erickson, with the Lawson series, right? Exactly. You've interviewed a lot of these people. Do you think, let's just say that George doesn't get Wins out, do you think it would actually tarnish his legacy if somebody came out and finished it? Like, I know it feels kind of different because he's still alive, but like when I think of Wheel of Time, like I don't really ever see people be like, oh man, Robert Jordan didn't finish it and Brandon Sanderson had to come in. Like it still feels like most people view it as Robert Jordan's series, not so much Brandon Sanderson's.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there who feel this way. They say, if Robert Jordan hadn't padded those books so much with the slog and all the like he could have finished it. I've seen that, which I think is honestly, it's pretty mean-spirited take in many ways, right? Like it's not like he purposely died and not finished his series, right? So the situation is different, though. Let's be clear. It's absolutely different. So when you say tarnish legacy, like objectively, no, not at all. From an internet perspective, oh yeah, that'll be like the main talking point, at least for a good amount of years. Matt, this told me, it was on one of our shorts. Someone said something about how George's legacy would be ruined and how he'll be known as the author who could never finish a story. And I had secondhand embarrassment considering the fact that George has so many other novels and stories that he has finished. I mean, he's one of the most prolific short story writers in the 70s and 80s and has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to awards and just notables. He has finished so many stories. Now, he might not have finished his most popular one. That is true. But to say the man has never finished anything is just objectively wrong. And I honestly was like embarrassed for the commenter when I saw that, because I was like, oh, they just don't know. They've never even thought to Google it or to look into it more. Like you said, I am a avid reader of pretty much all things fantasy and sci-fi. So I have come to appreciate George R. R. Martin for far more than just A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, I think some of his short works like Sand Kings, I would argue Sand Kings is as good as A Song of Ice and Fire. You and I love Duncan Egg, right? Like we love those contained stories. They're so good. He's so talented in the short form. So I think to people who read a plethora of things and are a little bit more aware, I don't think it really messes with his legacy too much. I think for people who are just readers of A Song of Ice and Fire, that's like all they care about, or their TV show driven, whatever. Like, yeah, probably to them, that would be a huge black eye. Yeah. But Canterbury Tales are not finished. I mean, that's one of the most popular literary pieces ever. I mean, like Canterbury Tales are huge. His
other work too, like the stuff he's done. I know people complain about wild cards and stuff like that, but I think one of the things, it's like people don't forget about, and maybe it's just because a lot of the people who watch TV or read fantasy aren't as big into video games, but Elden Ring is like going to be a massive franchise. I mean, it already, just with now they have
that already is, yeah.
Right. But I mean, like when Elden Ring 2 drops, which we know it will at some point, and George is a very big part of that franchise.
He's absurdly successful.
Elden Ring very easily could become bigger the next 10 to 15 years. It could be a bigger thing than Game of Thrones. Right. I mean, like that's people like kind of think about video games. I don't think they think about them as like being nearly as big. But do you know what the single most, it will change next year, but do you know what the single most, like the biggest launch of any media is ever? Like in terms of like has made the most money, the biggest piece of like, I guess you want to call it content or whatever you want to call it.
GTA 5?
Red Dead Redemption 2 is the most profitable. Like, I mean, it blows movies out of the water.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah. I mean,
think GTA 6 will be.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
GTA 6 is going to make like $10 billion in a day. I mean, it's going to be absurd.
Yeah, it's all about the scope you look at, right? So George has been successful in Broadway. He's been successful in television shows. He's worked on movies. He's worked on short stories. He's been an editor. And Brandon Sanderson's actually said that George R. R. Martin's one of the finest editors that the fantasy genre has ever seen. And now he's also dipped his toes into working with video game that ended up being a massive hit. I mean, there is so many things that you can accredit to him that I think have been very successful and very impactful to pop culture. It's just really hard for me to imagine a non-finished series being nullifying all of that. I'm not saying it can't for the individual, but it depends on the scope the person's looking at. And another thing about A Song of Ice and Fire is that, like, I'm in that corner, and no one ever agrees fully, but a large amount of people think that A Storm of Swords is the greatest fantasy book ever written, regardless of whether the series is ended or not. That means something to me. I just